Wow, that's really exciting. We have a international group here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about an entrepreneurship mindset. And many of you may be interested in doing a startup, or you're doing a startup, or you want to understand, what the people are like who are entrepreneurs. So let me pull up a presentation and share this with you. Meanwhile, I really would like for everyone to be as interactive as possible. And so you can raise your hands, write a question, and that way we have much more of a dialogue than me just lecturing to you. All right? And just think though, if you raise your hand and talk, then you actually get better visibility and people know who you are. And you may make more connections this way. All right? So please don't be reticent and be very engaged if you can. So let me pull up my presentation. All right. Now, can everyone see that? Okay. Uh-oh. There. I don't use Microsoft. I don't use Microsoft as often, so I'm not as familiar with it. But I'll get started. And Pablo, because I can't see the chat, can you just alert me with if there's any questions in the chat?
Okay. Yep, I'll do that.
Fantastic. So successful entrepreneurship begins with mindset. And what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about myself, because some of you may find that we have quite a lot in common. This is me. I was born in Taiwan, and that's my mother holding me. And yes, everyone always sees that, and what goes through their mind is, oh, your mom is so pretty, isn't she? She was 20 years old when she had me. And then what happened is that my father, right there, you see him, we immigrated to the US when I was little, because my father came to the US to get his PhD in chemistry. And by the time he graduated with his PhD, there was already 4 of us kids. And my mother did not speak English. And so while I was growing up, with my family, we spoke Taiwanese at home. And it wasn't until I started going to school when I was 5 that I learned to speak English. And as you can see, I'm the oldest, and I have all these little brothers. And it's pretty funny. My brothers all call me Big Mama. So, after growing up in Michigan, where my dad was a chemist, I went to college here at Stanford. So I went all the way from Michigan to Stanford, California, which is a crazy new world. Where we were in the middle of the US, we thought California was where all the crazies were. And at Stanford, I really explored a lot. Like, there's so many things I'd never heard of, I'd never seen, I'd never done. And I started out, of course, as a chemical engineer because my dad was a chemist. And I switched my major to a mechanical engineer, and I got my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering. But while I was there, I got lots of work experience in different fields. So every summer, I worked really hard to get an internship. So I worked in the oil fields, I worked in the office, I did biomedical research, and I was really exploring. And also, I tried some totally new things. Stanford has some really amazing broad range of electives that you can take. And so I took Buddhism, I took windsurfing. I even took a bartending class. So believe it or not, I have 1 credit in bartending from Stanford. That may end up being the way that I, make money. So after I graduated, I wanted to be a real engineer. I wanted to get my hands dirty. And so I took a job as a refinery engineer for Exxon. And if you see over here, this picture, this is the refinery that I worked in. And if you see right here, these tall smokestacks, there's 2 sets of them right here. Well, there's a cable that's a figure-8 cable that holds these together so that they wouldn't start oscillating in the wind and break off. And that's my project. And I did that project in 1986, and it's still there. So moving on, after like 3 years of working in the refinery, I decided I didn't like smelling like diesel fuel every day. And I wanted to go into a cleaner industry. So I switched jobs and I became a production engineer in a chocolate factory. That was really fun. And if any of you have ever come to California or San Francisco, you'll see these chocolates, Ghirardelli, and especially these squares. So one of my projects was to put in the production equipment to package those chocolates. One of the things that happened when I was at Ghirardelli is that I found that I love marketing because I worked on cross-functional teams with other people, someone from marketing, someone from quality assurance, someone from, accounting, and I was the engineer. I love the marketing part, trying to understand customers. How do you reach them? How do you create products that the customers would like? And so I decided I wanted to go into business. So I applied and went to Berkeley for my MBA. After I graduated, I was featured on one of the magazine covers for our Cal Business magazine, and here I am. I'm on the cover. The woman on the right was the CEO of Jack in the Box, which is American junky fast food. This woman in the middle is the head of a children's museum in Oslo. I was really excited about being on the cover, but when I showed it to my sons, they just said, "Oh, Mom, can you ask that lady on the right if we can get some coupons for Jack in the Box?" So, anyways, moving on, is when I graduated with my MBA, I took a job at the telco in marketing and sales. And one of the things that I want to tell you all is, if, like, a question for you is, raise your hand. How many people have done a sales job? Okay, well, I really strongly recommend that everyone here do a sales job, at least for a little while, because I think it's one of the most critical skills that you need to succeed in life, and especially in your professional role, because you need to basically sell yourself when you're interviewing for a job. Or you need to sell your idea to management so it gets funded. You need to sell your product. You need to sell your company. And if you can develop sales skills, it's extremely valuable for success. So after working about a year and thinking I was going to be fired because sales was so hard, I finally worked really hard and really did a lot of customer work, and I joined the President's Club for top sales. So that was really exciting. It was super hard, but it took a year and I finally did well. So while I was at AT&T, all my customers were the new entrepreneurs doing internet. This is in the 90s. So they were changing the world. They were connecting people with internet. And then internet just changed so much of our lives. And I was so excited by what my customers were doing. I quit my job and we went to a startup where I got half my pay, but I got some stock in the company. And so it was so exciting. Everything was very chaotic. When I went to the office, I didn't have a computer. I didn't even have a phone. Yet, we figured it out. And one of my jobs was taking out the garbage. Because in a startup, you have to do everything. So that was a really great time. And then I love being in a startup. So what happened was, while I was at this first startup, my husband, who worked for Seagate, and that's the computer hard drive company. Well, he was asked to transfer to Singapore, and I was like, no, I love what I'm doing. I love my job. Like, I don't want to go and be an expat wife and sit by the pool. I said, if we're going to move, I have to get a job. So his company flew me to Singapore, and I ended up getting the job of launching the second internet service provider in Singapore, because the internet was new and Singapore did not have any expertise. So when I landed there, they were like, oh, great, can you do this? I had no idea what I was getting myself into. As an expat wife who didn't want to sit by the pool, I ended up working 18-hour days. And we're just working and working and, trying to educate the people about what the internet was. And it was so hard. And I had a 2-year-old son at the time that I called my mother and I said, Mom, I need your help. And my mom came to Singapore and helped to take care of my son for a couple of years. But the exciting thing was we worked so hard to help educate the people, like what the value of internet was, what it could do. And I had an amazing team of young people working for me, all in their 20s, and we wanted to change the world. And so in 12 months, we actually ended up with more competitors than Singapore Telecom. So that was super exciting. And 4 years later, we acquired internet providers in Hong Kong, an internet provider in Australia, Philippines, and in India. And we filed to go public, and we IPO'd on the NASDAQ in 1999. So, that sounds all exciting. Hang on for a second. That sounds all exciting, but so I went on, and I was so excited by doing startups that I went on to do a number of startups, and a number of startups that succeeded and ones that failed. So here's a bunch of other ones that I worked on that were successful. But the thing is that it wasn't all about successes, all right? Because you look at all those entrepreneurs out there, it's not all about successes. A lot of times they're successful because they failed and they learned something from it. So let me tell you about some of my big failures. So there was one of the early startups I joined. It was a company that was a B2B online commerce company. And the CEO said to me, hey, we don't have enough money to make payroll for the next month. Can you lend me some money? Because right now I'm trying to get a loan on my house. Okay. And I'm all excited about being in this company. And my previous company had been bought, so I had some cash. So I said, here's some money. And I gave him $200,000, and guess what? He never got the loan on his house. The money ran out. We closed the company, and he still has this fancy house in Silicon Valley. So the question is, what did I learn? And what I learned was you have to do a lot more due diligence. You can't get caught in the moment of being all excited about this idea and this team that seems so wonderful. And you have to be very critical, especially when you're investing your money. Then another company that I was on the founding team is I was on this company for 5 years, and after 5 years, the company closed down after spending and losing about $30 million of investor money. And what did I learn from that? What I learned from that is that the problem with this team, the startup, was the two primary founders, they were always fighting. They were trying to go in different directions, and they would take different people on the team with them, that direction, this direction. And there was just all this politics and chaos. And we spent more time fighting within the company than we did fighting competitors. So now, if I look at working with a team, or if I look at investing in a startup company, I will always avoid any teams where the founders are in opposite directions. And lastly, another example is I invested in a company called TCM Online, Traditional Chinese Medicine. And a bunch of Hong Kong businessmen, very successful, like the founder of Lenovo, they were investing, and they said, "Hey, Gigi, do you want to invest with us?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And so I invested with them, but 1 year after we invested, $2 million disappeared, because this company was in China. And so what I learned from this is that if you're going to be involved with something in China, you really have to be working closely with someone who is from China, and like just being from Hong Kong isn't good enough. So I look at my $25,000 as my Asian MBA. Now, after going through all these startups, people started asking me to give talks on Silicon Valley. And then it went from giving a talk on Silicon Valley to, hey, can you teach a startup program? Can you teach our students to create a technology startup? And so I was asked to teach at UC Berkeley, and I've been teaching there now for 6 years. So I teach a 5-day startup boot camp where students come into the class on day 1, they form a team, come up with an idea, and then on day 5, they present a completed investor presentation and present to a bunch of Silicon Valley investors. So, yeah, and besides doing this at Berkeley, I teach global boot camps around the world. I've been doing it in the Netherlands since 2012. I even had a chance to do it in Oman to a group of entrepreneurs that the Sultan had selected. And that was an amazing experience. The students, they were so positive, so enthusiastic, really smart, and really we're going to create some amazing things in Oman. And of course, I've been many times to Asia, and this is a entrepreneurship leadership event in Korea. And the other people you see there are all students of mine from Berkeley. The organizer of the conference invited me to bring a whole bunch of my students so they could network with local Korean students. So right here, as I mentioned before is not only do I teach at Berkeley, but I also teach, with my own company, MG-Team, around the world with different organizations. And a few years ago, NATO asked me to teach an innovation program, a week-long innovation program to NATO. And that was really amazing to teach all these top military people from different countries in Europe. And they were really great people. And with what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, I really think back to those people, and I really hope that we can manage the situation. So, yeah, I wanted to share with you one important part of my life. These are my two sons, Maxwell and Zachary. Max is on the left, he's 29. Zach is on the right, he's 25. And my life is going into a new adventure because Max is getting married next year. So I think my next adventure is maybe being a grandmother. So, hey, at this point, I want to just kind of stop and see, are there any questions? Does anyone want to share something? Okay. Isis has said, I'm coming from the entertainment industry. Is there an element of creativity? Oh my gosh, absolutely, Isis. I'm going to move forward and I'm going to talk about a mindset in the next segment of the presentation. And I will tie some of the things I talk about to creativity. Okay. And especially also creativity in business. Now, is there someone there who has their hand raised? Oh, Rose.
Yeah, Rose. Yeah.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Hi, Rose.
Hi. Yeah, I always like to know when I'm listening to all this incredible stuff. Take my mother's hairband off my wrist. Yeah, I'm listening, thinking this is all wonderful and inspiring and exciting. And I always find myself wondering, what do these individuals such as Gigi do to create a balance? I think you've begun to talk about it actually with your sons and becoming a grandmother. So I was about to ask that. How do you balance the go with your personal life?
That's a really good question. Let me talk about it with respects to my kids. Okay. So when I was working on Pacific Internet, I was living in Singapore, which was a foreign country to me, and I actually chose a daycare center right next to my office, and so I could go see my sons. Right. Well, actually, at that time I only had one son, and like at the end of the day, oftentimes we worked late, but I would bring my son to my office. And that's one thing I didn't do. I never hesitated to think, oh, no one wants to see my kid. I always brought my son to my office, and all the young kids in my office loved him, and they create stuff for him. Everyone would have competitions on seeing if they could get him to come play under their desk. And one thing they found was that he liked Mentos, and so they keep Mentos in their drawers, and so to try and get him to come and play under their desk. And so later on when my son was 19 and he was a robotics engineering student, I took him to a meeting with a woman who was a CEO of a robotics firm. And he was engaged, and he's asking the woman, oh, and what's your business model? How do you make money? And at the end of the talk, this woman asked him, she said, Max, can I ask you a personal question? And Max is like, I could see in his face, don't ask about girlfriends. Don't ask about girlfriends, right? And she actually said, Max, I have a son who's 11, and I want to know, when can I start including him in my work? When can I start bringing him to work? And my son looks at her and he goes, I've never known a time when I wasn't sitting under my mom's desk. And as he grew up, he actually said to me, Mom, my friends don't know how to act at work. They don't know how to act very professional. And so that was one of the things I did. I always made time for 5 to 9. I didn't do any work. That was kid time. And after they went to sleep, then I would work. Another question that someone asked me yesterday, because I taught an executive class last night, is, weren't you burned out? And it made me think, yes, actually between every startup, I actually took 6 months off. Like, just clear my mind. And those were like these gaps of 6 months were the times that I would basically be there for my kids all day long. And so my kids they got it. And then, and I'll be honest, the other thing is I always had a nanny. And when I was working for Ghirardelli, the vice president, she had 3 kids. She was very high up and she drove the junkiest car. I'm like, she's a vice president. Why is she driving this really junky car? And I kind of was talking to her, and I found out that her husband was getting his PhD at Berkeley. And she told me, when you have children and you want to succeed in your career, spend it on childcare. If you get the best childcare, you don't worry. And you don't worry about racing home. You can solve the problems because you know your kids are in good hands. And so she spent a lot of money on a live-in nanny. And like 2 years after that, she got a big promotion and she showed up with a Mercedes. But you might spend $30,000 a year on a nanny, but if you get a huge jump in your career, it will cover that. Does that help?
It does. I'm a lot older and way past having children age, so long. But I was just thinking, because I'm going into something new now, I'm not wanting to take any more time. I'd rather you answered other people's questions,
No.
but I'm just thinking of how much time do I want to spend on this, because I'm in my late 50s and I've got lots of energy, but I also want to be careful I don't go into where I used to be 20 years ago when I was just bonkers and never did anything but work.
Yeah, but
I'm
see,
a bit
now,
afraid of
that you're wiser, you know to say no.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm probably asking on behalf of others.
Yeah, well, just whatever you do, just make time for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Gigi,
Okay. Now,
there are some more questions here. Do you want to take some now, or should we save them up?
Yeah, we can take some now.
So we've got some from Kestutis. Thank you. Launching a virtual clinic for back pain and musculoskeletal pain relief. What will be important steps to attract the interest of Silicon Valley investors to develop a successful business?
Oh, okay. Well, let me take a quick overview. Okay, is you need to have a couple things you need. You need to be addressing a big problem where there's a lot of customers who need the solution. Okay, and then you need to have a product which is going to make things infinitely better. Well, exponentially better. It can't just make your problem a little bit better. It has to make it better in 10 different ways. Like, for example, when Uber came out, Uber wasn't just a slightly cheaper way of getting to point A to point B. Uber, it was a platform where it opened it up so millions of new people and cars could be the transportation mode, not just the certified taxis that you have in London. Anybody could be a taxi, right? And so that exponentially increased the number of cars that were available. And then Uber also, you don't have to carry money. You can also identify where the car is, identify where the rider is. It was so much better. So it has to be so much better. Then a third important thing is that you need to show a vision and a projection that you're going to make tons of money. Okay. And in Silicon Valley, if you want a Silicon Valley venture capital type of investor, you have to be looking at making hundreds of millions of dollars in the next by year 5 for something for them to be interested in. So you have to think really big in terms of financials. And so there's a lot more to this that when I teach at boot camp, we kind of go through all of this in detail. And if you're interested, you can send me an email and I can send you a link to a video talk that I gave in my class at Berkeley on what are the questions that you need to address to get Silicon Valley investors. Does that help?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kęstutis.
Yeah, does that answer the question? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, please send me an email. I can send you more.
Fantastic. So I'll ask Pablo to share the email with me.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
So who wants to hear about mindset?
And we'll come back to the other questions. So you go ahead, Gigi.
Okay. Oh, there's all these different questions. Maybe we'll go ahead and answer them.
Yeah, do you want to? Okay. Can you see Hammer's question?
Which country is the most risk averse?
Oh, from Jay, yeah.
Okay. Someone asked, I think, which country is the most risk adverse?
Yep.
Right? Well, one of the most risk averse countries is actually Singapore. And as a country, it's very tightly run. People have been told what to do, and like you need to stay within these boundaries, and no, people don't dare to go out. And so if you see any of the really successful startups in Singapore, they all have a strong government involvement. Like Grab, that, when someone saw Grab was good, then the government got involved and really supported it to help them succeed. And as a result, it wasn't really a risky venture because when the Singapore government is involved, it's not going to fail. And so, so I'd say Singapore is probably one of the most countries which puts a lot of money into supporting entrepreneurs, but a lot of it isn't because of the entrepreneurs, it's because of the government. Okay? And so David has a 5-year-old son and he wants to be an entrepreneur. Hey, you know what? The cool thing about having kids as an entrepreneur is you actually have extra incentive because you're doing this for him, to be a role model for him, to save up enough money to send him wherever he wants to go for university, so on. Okay. Fausta asks, how would you go about gathering marketing skills? In terms of marketing stuff, go to events, join an incubator, recruit someone to join your team, maybe an intern from a business school or something. There was a PhD student in Netherlands who wanted to work on a startup. He had his PhD in, some sort of optics, right? Knew nothing about marketing. So when he came to my boot camp, he actually recruited a MBA student to come join with him. And so the MBA student kind of helped him on how do you present your product? How do you do this? And he learned a lot of marketing in that process of doing with someone there to mentor him. So really get exposed, jump into it. I got into marketing because I was working on teams where there was a marketing person, and I would always ask her questions. And then I asked my boss, can you give me a marketing project? And let me tell you something cool. My boss's name was Glenn Armstrong. Who does that remind you of? Glenn Armstrong.
Neil
Armstrong.
Exactly. Neil was his uncle.
Showing our
And
age.
so Glenn was like, Gigi, if my uncle can get on the moon, you sure as hell can do some marketing. You know? And so you learn the most by doing. Get some people to mentor you, go to events. There's look in London, I'm sure there's some marketing meetups. Just start, immerse yourself and you'll learn. Okay? And okay, fantastic. So now let me go on to my presentation, and in this presentation, I'm sharing with you how to develop an innovation mindset where you want to try new things, where you want to go out of your comfort zone. And one of your things that you do may be to go out of your comfort zone and learn marketing and learn finance, or even learn some technical stuff like blockchain. Okay. All right, let me figure out how to get back to this. Okay, I can go back to it. Okay. Okay, I'm back at my presentation. Okay, I'm in the wrong one. There, I'm back. Can you see that? So, Pablo, are we good?
Yep. No, you crack on. There's one other question, but we can pick it up later.
All right, fantastic. So I am teaching at Berkeley. I teach in the Satarja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. So it's actually in the School of Engineering. Everyone always says, when I say, oh yeah, I teach at UC Berkeley, they go, in the business school? I go, no, actually in the College of Engineering. Berkeley is a gigantic school, I don't know, 50,000 students and like 20 different schools and departments. And so since entrepreneurship is so hot here in, the Bay Area, there are a lot of entrepreneurship centers in the university, and ours being in the engineering school. And what we focus on is the intersection of entrepreneurship and technology. One of the things is that in teaching entrepreneurship, we've come to realize that it can't be taught like traditional topics, okay? It cannot be taught like history. In history, you're imparting knowledge of what happened in the past to the students. The students listen to the professor, take lots of notes, memorize it, and then take a test. The thing about entrepreneurship is most of the professors haven't been there themselves, so they can't tell you exactly what to do. And so when it comes to teaching entrepreneurship, it's really about teaching some principles, imparting on students the skills and the mindsets so that they can go and come up with crazy new ideas and crazy new solutions to solve problems. So we've developed an approach to teaching entrepreneurship called the Berkeley Method of Entrepreneurship. A lot of times we call it BMOE, okay? And the BMOE, there are 5 pillars. Let me tell you, the first pillar is inductive learning. And then the second pillar is mindsets and behaviors. So you guys are wondering what this is. So I will cover it in the next couple of slides. And the third pillar is frameworks and cases, which are sort of the business school topics. And then the fourth pillar is networks and connections. So what do you guys think that networks and connections is about? Why don't you write it in the chat? Okay. Or actually, if you guys want, just shout it out. What do you think Networks and Connections is about?
Professional community.
Yeah, exactly. Networks and Connections are about people. It's not about, a telco connection, but it's about people. Because in order to create a successful startup, you need people. You need investors, you need employees, you need partners, customers, so on. And so learning to build that professional community is super important. And then the last pillar of the Berkeley method is that it's journey based. It's actually based on experiential learning. You're doing a journey, and what you've learned before is something you remember, and then gives you knowledge and skills to help you in the future. So these are the 5 pillars that we use to teach entrepreneurship in our center. What is inductive learning? Well, in the past, our professors would tell you about a theory or a theorem, okay? Like the queuing theory. For those of you that don't know, the queuing theory is that basically can be proven mathematically. And the result is when you develop the mathematical proof, you can show that one single line at security in the airport is much faster than if everybody comes up and chooses which line to stand in. And so when I was a student, the professor developed the proof, and I'm busy scribbling, copying what he's writing, and memorizing it. Well, in today's world, we want to apply inductive learning, where instead of the professor showing the student what to do, we ask the student, why is this so? And they have to prove it. It's much, much harder for the students, but it's so important because by using inductive learning, we're teaching the students to learn to think on their own. And because they need to think on their own so that they can have the right skills to identify problems and come up with the innovations to solve those problems. And so we really push it out to the students to figure things out. In terms of some of the other pillars, as I mentioned, the frameworks and mechanics are a lot what you might learn in business school. It's all the financial stuff you need to know to run a business. And then back to networks and connections, the way we do it is we bring in guest speakers, sort of like how I'm guest speaking for Visionnaire right now. And we have mentors to help the students on their projects. We have networking events, working sessions. And then lastly, we try to teach them rules of engagement. And the fact that when you're building a network or a connection, it needs to be a two-way value exchange. And so, for example, if a mentor comes in and helps a team, what is the value that the mentor gets? We know that the mentor can really share knowledge and expertise with the students, but what does the mentor get? And so I really reinforce to the student to think about how the mentor is benefiting and to make sure that they're very appreciative. In some cases, my students have taken the mentor out for dinner. And when you create that two-way value exchange, it's a much stronger connection. Now, the most important part of our methodology, our secret sauce, is that we try to teach our students what are the right mindsets and behaviors to be able to be successful innovators and entrepreneurs. The one thing is, this cannot be taught with a lecture. It needs to really be internalized through experiential learning. And so let's talk some more about mindsets and behaviors. This whole area about mindsets was pioneered by a professor at Stanford, and this is a fantastic book. if you guys want to read it. And she did years and years of research about students, how they learned, how they dealt with challenges, how they performed. And she found that there was kind of two categories of mindsets. There were the students who had a fixed mindset, who thought, oh, I'm only good at math. Oh, I can't be good at marketing. So I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to stick to my technical stuff. Okay? And they had a fixed mindset with what they could do and what they would do. Meanwhile, you have the students with a growth mindset who didn't limit themselves to anything. You know, they were really curious. They were willing to try new things. Oh, that looks like fun. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. So my question to you is, what type of mindset do you think Elon Musk had as a student? You guys can shout it out.
Try everything.
Yeah, he was definitely the growth mindset. Okay, so what are the characteristics? Sorry, I'm going to go back. So one of the things that Carol Dweck observed was that experiences and the way that you're brought up actually has a great impact on your mindset. So in traditional societies, right, girls were often taught to be safe. Oh, be safe. Oh, be pretty. You know, be good, be perfect. And so girls were taught not, to try to achieve perfection and to stay within a safe boundaries, right? Well, boys, on the other hand, they're taught to be brave. Oh, go be brave. Go climb the monkey bars. Oh, go and check that guy in rugby. It's okay if you get hurt. You know, you gotta win. And so you actually see that you end up with boys having a more of a growth mindset, more brave, and the girls being more timid. And this shows up in the workplace. Hewlett-Packard did a study. They wanted to see if there was differences in men and women applying to jobs. So they did a study, posted 1,000 job applications, and they had requirements. MBA, 5 years in accounting, experience in the oil industry, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, question to you all is, what percentage of the requirements listed for a job posting did the men have that applied? What do you guys think? Shout out the numbers.
30%.
30?
40%.
40? 20? Oh, you guys are tough. They actually had 60% of the requirements. All right. Now, what percentage of the requirements for a job posting for the women that applied, what percentage of the requirements did they have?
90.
You're close. It was actually surprisingly close to 100. So, but look at this. What does this tell you? Is that the men who apply, even if they don't have the requirements, they're like, I can do it, right? And they're willing to try. Well, the women aren't willing to try until they're perfect. So men actually get more opportunities to move up because they take more chances. So women, what do you think? Okay, So you can read more about this study in this Harvard Business Review. I'm sent a copy of this presentation to Anna and to Pablo, and they're going to share it with you. So if you click on this graphic, it'll take you to this article that goes into more detail. But what this shows is, people's experiences, how they're brought up, actually impacts their mindset. So let's go and look a little bit at, what are the elements of a growth mindset? So a growth mindset is things that we've observed is that someone who has a growth mindset has a wide comfort zone. They're willing to try new things. At one point, I was asked to teach communications at a university in Morocco. And I told the dean, I can't do that. I don't speak French. I don't speak Arabic. And by the way, English is my third language. And the professor said, exactly. So you know how these people feel. And I went, no, I can't do that. It's not my specialty. And finally, I realized that I was not practicing what I preach. I was sticking in my comfort zone. And I said, Gigi, you know, you're not practicing what you preach. And you're telling your students to go out of their comfort zone. So finally, I took the job, and it was a fantastic time. It was an amazing experience. I am still in touch with my Moroccan students. So a growth mindset means you have to go out of what you're comfortable with. A second element is that it's about trust. You have to generate trust and also trust other people. And the reason trust is important in entrepreneurship is if you're building a team, a lot of people are new. Okay, you may not trust them yet, but you need to trust faster, because only when you trust each other can you work together and get that product out. Meanwhile, if you're a team that doesn't trust, you're spending this time getting to know each other, 6 months passes by. Meanwhile, the team that already is much more trusting, they're working on their product and they get it to market faster. So you got to start with trust. And if someone betrays the trust, you deal with it. But it's really important to start with trust. Then a third element is to be good connectors. Connect because you've got to connect with people. And also, people with a growth mindset apply a lot of inductive learning. They're always experimenting, seeing what works and what doesn't work, and reflecting on it and learning from it. Thomas Edison is the best example because he says, I have not failed. I have only found 10,000 things that don't work. But from there, I learned what it took to make something that works. The last point I want to talk to you about growth mindsets and behaviors is emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So someone with a growth mindset is aware of how other people are feeling, and so knows if someone's uncomfortable and can help engage them so they can get the benefit of that person's brain. Okay? And they're also aware of themselves. Where are they strong? Where are they weak? And to be able to recruit the right people. So these are the key characteristics of someone with a growth mindset. And so at the end of the day, this leads to someone who's constantly learning and trying to figure stuff out and growing. While you go on the flip side, you go to a fixed mindset. They only want to stay within their comfort zone. They're mistrustful of new people. They don't want to take chances. When you bring up to them, hey, let's try this. No, that's not going to work. And when they do try something new and it doesn't work, they say, see, we never should have done it. Okay? And this sort of person with a fixed mindset, their brain is essentially switched off because they don't want to exercise it and try new things, learn from failures. So does anyone here know someone they work with who has a fixed mindset? Yeah, okay. So in terms of psychology, some of the things about here are a bunch of characteristics of growth mindset. They don't hoard information. They will say what no one else wants to say. Like if something isn't working, no one wants to say it because they don't want to be the bearer of bad news. But someone with a growth mindset says, hey, we got to identify this problem. We got to work on it so that we can move forward successfully. Someone with a growth mindset values diversity. Different people, different backgrounds, different skills. They're self-aware, like I talked about, and very importantly, they see adversity as an advantage. Like when we hit adversity, okay, rather than going, oh, things are going bad, they actually look at it as, ooh, here's a chance to innovate. So COVID-19 has been really tough for the world, and it's been exciting in terms of seeing people who had a growth mindset, you respond with amazing innovations. These Italian innovators, when in Italy they were low, the COVID was really bad, hospitals were full, they were short on ventilators. These innovators developed a ventilator from scuba equipment. Isn't that amazing? And they saved lives. So that adversity drove innovation. Another example was some students created an app so these isolated older people and grandparents could connect with their grandchildren and read stories online. So another example is I've been teaching a startup boot camp with my team in Hong Kong since 2017. We go there twice a year and we teach 50 startups. But when COVID hit, I thought, okay, this year's stuff will be canceled. But my client, the manager for the Hong Kong incubator, Catherine Lam, actually said, Gigi, why don't we do it online? I'm like, how do we do it online? We have 5 mentors from Silicon Valley. We have 50 students. How do we do this online? But she said, yes, we can. Let's do it. And we did it. And it ended up being, I'd say, more successful because we stretched the program from 2 days and we stretched it across 4 weeks so that startup entrepreneurs had time to learn and apply and iterate. And so at the end of the day, COVID actually led to an innovation which was a better outcome. So a lot of my clients around the world with COVID, at different points in time, actually we went online, and I'm really excited because now we've developed a platform where we can reach a lot more people, and it gives us a lot more parameters to work with, especially time in terms of teaching entrepreneurship. And so coming out of COVID, I've realized that in teaching entrepreneurship, that a blended program with both in-person teaching and online teaching is probably one of the best approaches to teaching global entrepreneurship. In in-person teaching, you do the initial lectures, you meet the people, you build those bonds, and you have in-person games and networking sessions. And then you augment it with continued online teaching by having able to get a lot of guest speakers. If we do a program in the UK, not every speaker can come from Silicon Valley, but by doing it online, maybe you can meet some amazing entrepreneurs and investors by doing it online. And you also get to stretch out the training over time, so you really have time to learn, absorb, and iterate. And last thing, it's easy to record and share the learning with more people. So moving forward, how many people think that we can measure the innovation mindset? Anybody? Okay. Well, in our department, the Sitarja Center, we have a team of researchers who have developed a methodology to measure a person's innovation mindset. And you too can go and take this survey and assess what your innovation mindset is. And so this is a sample output. Let me go into more detail. So you will put in your email and you'll get sent this output from taking the survey. You'll get a measure of what's your trust level? What's your comfort zone? How comfortable are you to go beyond what you're familiar with? Resilience. This is your ability to deal with failure. Like when you fail, you just give up and don't try again. Or when you fail, you just get up and you try again and again, the way that we saw all those Olympic athletes do in the last 2 weeks. Okay. And I guarantee you, as I showed you earlier, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be ready and you've got to be able to handle failure. Diversity, your ability to value and listen to people who are different. Belief and mental strength. This is a measure of like your own belief, your own self-confidence and belief that you can succeed. And like anyone who starts a restaurant has to have a high belief or mental strength, because everyone always says, oh, most restaurants fail. Like if you look like, people like Elon Musk, he definitely has a very strong belief or mental strength. Now, another person who has a really strong belief and mental strength is, of course, Richard Branson. I mean, look at all the things he's done, from mobile services to airlines, now to spaceships. He believes that he can do it. This parameter is about resources. What happens is this is your ability to manage and use multiple resources. People who are perfectionists oftentimes don't score well here, because if they're perfectionists, they spend too much time making something perfect rather than balancing across different requirements. Collaboration, of course, you need to be able to collaborate. And the last is the innovation zone. This is the measure of your ability to deal with uncertainty. Like if you're an entrepreneur, you're working on your product, you don't know if a customer is going to use it. You don't know if you're going to get funding. You don't know if you're going to make money. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay your people 1 year from now. You have to be okay with uncertainty. So some successful entrepreneurs and innovators, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, I guarantee you they all probably had really high innovation mindset indexes. Okay? But my goodness, we keep showing all these guys, right? Don't you want to see successful women entrepreneur, right? Hey, yeah, I know you always guys, right? So I want to highlight a really successful women entrepreneur. Do you guys have Spanx in the UK?
Yes, but don't wear them.
Sarah Blakely.
Good. So for those of you who don't know, Spanx is basically underwear that holds you in and makes you look slim and svelte. Okay? Well, this famous brand is started by Sarah Blakely. She was the daughter of a lawyer. She wanted to be a lawyer. She failed the law school entrance exams. So then she became a salesperson, but she wanted to do more. She just didn't want to be selling fax machines. So she came up with the idea for Spanx. Wouldn't it be nice to have underwear that holds you in? And she invested her own money to create this. And she manufactured some samples. And when she went to sell her product to department stores in the US, sort of like a Harrods in the US, everyone kept saying, no, we're not interested, no. And then she was talking to one last store, Neiman Marcus, and the purchaser was like, And so Sarah knew this was her last chance. So she asked the buyer, hey, do you want to go to the bathroom with me? And the buyer's like, oh God, if this is what it takes to get this crazy woman out of my office. So they go into the bathroom, and Sarah's wearing these really tight white pants. And Sarah pops in the stall, takes off her pants, takes off her Spanx, pulls on her pants, comes back out, and she goes, this is what I look without Spanx. And the woman looks at that and goes, all right, I want to order 10,000 pieces. So she would not give up. She just kept going and trying, and she believed in herself. And now Spanx makes close to $800 million a year, and Sarah Blakely is a self-made entrepreneur. So it's so exciting. She actually writes some blogs on LinkedIn. So for those of you who want to kind of follow it, she writes these inspiring posts on LinkedIn that you can follow. So at the end of the day, the question is, do you think that you can improve your innovation mindset? And the answer is yes. Here's the class that I teach at Berkeley. We basically have over 100 students come in, and like I said, they work on a startup idea, and on day 1, on day 5, they present to Silicon Valley investors. In the class, we really encourage diverse, multicultural, multinational teams, because a diverse team is much more powerful than a team where everyone is the same. And then we also, as I mentioned before, we can't teach mindset by lecturing. We have to teach it by doing. So we have all these games and challenges where the students have to go out of their comfort zone. They have to try new things. They have to appreciate diversity. And that's how we instill a more innovative mindset into the students. So I'll let you guys read this, but here's some of the reflections from the students about how their mindset has changed throughout the class. They talk about trust, taking risks, diversity. And so what I want to point out is this demonstrates that we can actually change someone's innovation mindset through experience. So before the students take my class, we would have them do the survey, and we'd measure their innovation mindset, before class started. And then 5 days later, we would measure their innovation mindset. And you could see that the innovation mindset, the index would actually go up by almost 10%. So people can actually work on developing a more innovative mindset. So the next couple of slides, I talk about how this could be applied in a company, and you guys can read it on your own. I worked with a Brazilian company where we basically applied the Berkeley method of entrepreneurship, and that company was able to apply it, and they've launched several new products because of that. So one of the things that I want to end with is that someone's culture may have a big impact on their innovation mindset. And so you want to think about your culture and think about how it might impact it and how you deal with it so that you can have a more innovative mindset. So in Asia, we're always told, be humble, don't show off. And when I was young, I got straight A's, and I wrote a letter to my grandfather in Taiwan. Grandpa, I got straight A's. Instead of congratulating me, my grandfather actually wrote me a letter saying, Gigi, you need to be more humble. But the question I have is, how does that impact mental strength? If the young people aren't taught to be confident in themselves and be proud of themselves, Or, of course, in many societies, they always say you need to respect and obey the elder people. And that a lot of times they say, older people get to make the decisions because they're smarter. But how does that impact diversity? How does it help older people or CEOs in companies who are older to appreciate the value that the younger people bring, especially in today's world where the younger people are the digital natives and they know so much more about digital? More cultural considerations is like, I work a lot with the Dutch, and the Dutch have this tendency to want everyone to be the same. And so if someone's not doing well, they will help them. They help the poor, they help the sick, right? But if anyone succeeds, people will kind of criticize them, try to bring them down. How does that impact diversity? You know, because the more diverse a workforce, the more talented it is. Or you look at France, you know, where there's such a big focus on perfection. You know, one of the issues in France I find is if I don't speak perfect French, no one wants to talk to me. But how do I develop perfect French until I get to try over and over? And so the focus on perfection, how does that impact resource awareness? So I think one of the challenges as we try to create a more innovative, you know, organization or innovative people is that how do I, as an educator, teach innovation mindset, yet still maintain some traditional values? Like, you know, I want my children to respect me and listen to me, right? So there's a balance between the two, and finding that optimal balance is something we just have to always think about and try to do. So lastly, just for fun, in my life, I've had to move from a fixed to growth mindset. In Taiwan, you do exactly what your parents tell you. That is the only thing you're supposed to do, very fixed. As an engineer, it was still somewhat fixed because you couldn't experiment too much, or somebody might die. But when I kind of got thrown into the world of entrepreneurship, where everything was new, there was all these challenges, all this adversity, my growth mindset had to grow like that. And now I'm learning how to golf, which is constant failure. You fail, you figure out what did I do wrong, and you keep working on it, and you're just constantly growing. So, you know, I've looked at my life, and you know, it's been a big journey moving from a fixed to a growth mindset. So if this is something you want to do, you want to be an entrepreneur, you can work on growing your innovation mindset, but a lot of it is by doing things out of your comfort zone. So at the end of the day, innovation starts with mindset. All of these tools, they're tools, but you need to have a growth mindset to really maximize all these tools. So like Isis, you were talking about design, you know, how you want to be creative. If you apply a more innovative mindset to doing creativity, you'll find that you'll be able to accomplish, you know, much crazier, much more things because you're going beyond your comfort zone and you might discover new talents. So with that innovative mindset, you more successful with all the things that you do, and it leads to results. And then people see, wow, the person's they seem to be more, you know, more growth mindset. They're more active. They take chances, and they're getting results. And so other people will start to copy them. So, as I said to you, sorry, let's see. As I said to you, you can really only learn and develop a growth mindset by doing. So I'd like to do a group exercise, and this is what we're going to do. These are 2 questions that I want you all to think of answers to. Okay? What is your secret love? What is your biggest failure? And what did you learn? All right? And Pablo and Ana are going to put you into breakout rooms of 4 to 5, and I want you to spend 10 minutes amongst yourselves talking about your secret love and your biggest failures. And then each group should choose their favorite answer to the first question and the favorite answer to the second question to share with the whole group when you come back in. All right? Hey, and if you guys want, take a picture of this, and so that you have these questions handy when you go in your breakout room.
So Gigi, thank you. Before we break out, just a couple of points. I'm going to ask Anna to make me as a presenter so I can create the breakout rooms. Also, I'm conscious in 10 minutes we'll come to the end of our time. So if people need to leave at 6, that is fine. We'd ask you if you can give us another 10 minutes. It would be great for you to come back in to the group to give us your feedback from the breakout room. So we may lose a few people at 6, but just for sake of 10 minutes, it'd be just great to hear feedback from the breakouts. While Anna's making me a presenter, Gigi, can you answer a couple of questions that we left behind earlier on a slightly different question, which was about pitching to raise funds. So one question from Mohammed was, what's the right stage of my startup to do a pitch to raise funds? And the related question from Jay is, when you're pitching, do you have to know all the answers? Is it going to be a problem? If you're particularly the answers about how does this really make money? Have you got to be really, really kind of right there with answering investors' answers? So what's the right stage to pitch? And do you really have to know all the answers?
Okay, so what's the right stage to pitch is there are different types of investors. So for early stage, you might want to go with friends, families, or angels. And then you mainly need to have an idea and some proof that you've done something that is of value, so someone wants to invest. So the early stage investors, you have to have created an idea or validated that people want this enough to convince someone to invest. If you're going for a venture capital, you need to have product, you need to have customers, you need to have a much more visibility into this is going to be a successful business for a venture capital firm to invest. Okay? And so that's the different things. Now, in terms of the answer to your question, Jay, no, if you act like you know everything, that is not good with investors. Okay? You know, thinking you know all the answers to questions is not good to investors, because they might, you know, if you don't know an answer to a question, you say that. You say, wow, you know, that's something we've been thinking about, but we're not there. You know, we're still working on that. Or you might say, oh, that was a really good question. We hadn't thought about that. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, that's why we want to have investors like you who make us think and really point us in new directions to grow. And investors actually like that, because one of the things they've said is, we want to invest in a team that's coachable. Okay? And if you kind of indicate like, wow, this is really valuable, you gave me something valuable, you know, you're not saying, I know everything, I don't need your help. Then they're going, wow, this team is coachable, they really want our help. That will actually increase your chances of raising money. Is to being more collaborative, you know, being willing to listen. And you definitely don't need to know everything, because not all the answers in the world are known. And it's the journey of answering questions that they're investing in.
Gigi, thank you very much indeed. Now, I don't have breakout rooms here. Anybody, Anna, do you have breakout rooms on your menu?
I do have them. I can do it.
Yeah, why don't you do it? Put 5 people in each room.
Actually,
okay, great.
And we'll just do this for 10 minutes, okay?
So we'll call you back in 10 minutes when you've answered these questions. So Anna, just put 5 in each room, choose random. Does that make sense?
I make a suggestion of 5 minutes or 7, since if we're feeding back as well, it might.
Okay.
What do you think, Gigi?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Should we do 5? I'll hook you back at 6. Let's do 5 minutes. Great. Thanks, Rose. While we're doing that, Gigi, I've shared the growth mindset index.
Perfect.
BerkeleyInnovationIndex.org. Is that the right place? People can do their test. Great. Okay. So I think Fausta, you asked for that, but I've put it in the chat.
So we're waiting a couple of minutes to get the rooms, or should I go ahead?
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Great.
Did you guys enjoy that?
Yeah, it's good.
Hello, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So I have a question. What do you think the goal of sharing the secret love was?
Bonding, probably.
Bonding, exactly. But the goal of the secret love was actually, you know, when you share a secret with someone, you're trusting them with your secret.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a way of learning to establish trust with somebody. And okay. And then what do you think the goal of the failure question was?
Learning. Honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Learning.
Yeah, learning is
and honesty, I'll say, you know, being open, being able to communicate what hasn't worked, and yeah.
And first of all, be self-aware of what, and to admit failure.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people, they don't realize, they think failure is a bad thing, so they try to hide it, they sweep it under the rug. But what they don't realize is failure can be really valuable if you stop, be honest, acknowledge it, and think about what did you learn so you don't make the same mistake again. Mm-hmm. US investors actually like to invest in people who have failed.
Oh, good.
Because the reason is, if you failed, that means you've tried something. And if you failed, you actually learned a lot more. Okay? It's like if I do a good golf swing, I have no idea how I did it. All I know is the ball went straight. But if I do it wrong, I go, did I stand right? Did I bend my arm? Did I do this? So the next time I know what not to do. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you're presenting to a US investor, you can say, oh yeah, I started another company. It failed because of this, this, and this. And so I learned this. You're more likely to get invested in than someone who never failed. Okay. And so this exercise was created to really help you think about a couple parameters of the innovation mindset, to be open, to build trust. And the other one was about resilience, to get yourself to think about your failure and then think about what you learned. And this is actually could be cocktail party exercises. You didn't know your innovation mindset could grow at a cocktail party. So, you know, I know it's really late. You guys, thank you for staying such a long time. You are a great audience. I loved all the questions. And, you know, I talked yesterday, I gave a different talk to an executive group, and someone was saying like, oh, but like, you're so confident and I don't have that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, I was an immigrant, and growing up in Michigan, I was the only Asian, and I just didn't fit in, and I didn't talk, and I just looked looking at everyone like, how come I look different? How come I don't get invited to parties?
No.
Yeah. No, but you know what? It's part of the learning, and you kind of keep trying. You go out of your comfort zone. You do stuff, and you grow, and so believe in yourself. Take chances. And David, have fun with your son.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Gigi,
No.
well, look, unless there's any kind of final questions for Gigi, I think we've covered all the questions in the chat, and I think I'd just like to kind of join in with a terrible prejudice of mine, which is that immigrants make the best entrepreneurs. How about that?
Hopefully.
So anyway, I'd really like to thank all of you for staying on. We've, particularly those of you staying on right now, we've overrun a little bit, but I hope you found that as fascinating as and insightful as I did. Gigi, thank you so much for taking a big chunk out of your morning to fly across the digital waves to join us over here to share your experience and insights. And I'm sure we will do some more work together. It was really fascinating to kind of see you in action today. It was really inspiring. Somebody's just put that in the chat. It really was. So, Gigi, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining today, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Pablo, for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for all the support.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you, Anna.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
Thanks,
quite
everyone.
interesting.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Pablo, are you still? Thank you.
I'm still here.
Yeah, you know, I asked you earlier about who I might get in touch with.
Oh yeah, no, you're on my list. Don't worry. So I do the matching with Rufus. So it'll probably take us 2 or 3 weeks because we've got a backlog with that, but we will get you a mentor.
All right, that's great to know. Thanks.
Yep.
Cheers.
And,
Okay.
and may I ask something?
Sure.
What is there anything planned as continuation, as follow-up or whatever? I mean, next step, or because I don't expect it is only, I mean, this thing and nothing more.
Oh, I see. So sorry, who's that? Is that Violina? Is that?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Have you done one of the Visionnaires programs?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, look, so you can, if you go onto, if you Google Visionnaires, it's visionnaires.ac.uk. Yeah. You can put your name down for one of our programs. So we do it's normally a 5-day. I've done that.
Sorry, it's cutting.
And it takes you through all.
Would you please repeat, because
a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you want to put it in the chat, Anna?
Yes, please.
The Visionnaires.
I would do that.
It will be useful
website.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Feel free to get back in touch with me. I sent you the link earlier today, so feel free to reply and get back in touch. I'll put my email on the chat as well if you have any questions and queries, but I'll get all the information through to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll send everyone the links. If you've not done a program, you can do that. But we run these seminars. They're open to everyone who's done a program. Most of the people here today have